Hey everyone, I'm Kevin with Victory 4x4. In today's video, we're going to be installing this bedside MOLLE panel in our 2023 Chevy Colorado ZR2. So we'll start out with some prep work on the panel itself. The panel does consist of two pieces, so I have the larger rear section here as well as the smaller front section. This is obviously going to have a larger radius here than up here. That's going to be the bottom. You can also tell by having this hook location up top. With the panels correctly oriented, you'll need to find the 1/2 inch long 1/4 20 button heads in your bolt pack, and you'll be simply installing those through the 3 round 1/4 inch holes here along this leading edge. Now these 3 locations do require the use of a serrated flange nut on the back side. And once you have all 3 of these started, you'll take a 5/32 hex and tighten them in place. From there, we can pre-install our lower mounting brackets. So this is the rear bracket. This top kind of solid section with the vertically slotted holes is going to go in behind the bottom edge of the panel and line up with 2 mounting holes there. In this location, you will again be using 1/2 inch long 1/4 20 button head hardware. Now we'll leave those loose so that we can still adjust that vertically later on and move up to the front lower mounting bracket. This one, kind of same thing. You've got 1 set of slotted holes, 1 set of round holes. These slotted holes again go in behind the panel. And then more 1/2 inch 1/4 20 button heads here. With the panel assembled, we'll now move into the truck bed where we can install the 3 upper mounting brackets. So the first thing you need to do when you get up inside of here is look for the 3 kind of oval hole plugs along the bed side in here. All 3 of those need to be popped out. You can use a screwdriver or a pry tool. They come out relatively easily. And obviously, if you're working with a painted truck bed rather than something that has a bed liner, you might want to take a little extra caution there, maybe use a plastic pry tool. Now in these locations, you're going to need to find your 3 upper mounting brackets. 2 of these are identical, 1 is going to be slightly different, so it will have an F cutout in the top edge there. So I'll grab 1 of the rears since we're working back here. You'll then need to grab 1 of your nut plates. These are going to have a pre-installed nut on what will be the back side or the outside, if you will, in this orientation. And then you'll also need a 5/16 button head bolt. So you'll pass the bolt through your bracket and start it into the nut plate on the back side here. And with that still pretty loose, you'll want to slide it in the oval cutout on the bed side and then slide it back to where it is roughly centered in that hole. Now in order to get the best retention out of this bracket system, you want to try and make sure that this nut plate stays pretty much horizontal with the bracket and the bed of the truck once everything's installed in there. The easiest way to do that is kind of how I have it here. We've got it centered up in the hole, we've got that nut plate the way we want it, and then we're just going to kind of put some outward pressure on it like this, and then take our 3/16 hex and slowly work to tighten that bolt, drawing it in. And as long as we keep pressure on that, generally speaking, those nut plates tend to stay where they are. And once you get this tightened up, you can just take a second look to make sure that this looks nice and centered in the kind of recessed opening here on the factory bed, and it is pretty much down along the kind of bottom flange, if you will, of that recess, nice and parallel there. Once you're comfortable with that, you can follow that same process to install the middle and front mounting brackets. Once you have all 3 brackets in, you can grab your panel and slide that up into place. And then it really doesn't matter where you start, but you'll want to start some more 1/2 inch long 1/4 20 button heads. These are going to have pre-installed nuts on the bracket, so it makes this part nice and easy. And if you have any misalignment in your bolt holes here, you can just carefully loosen up those 5/16 button heads on the kind of outside edge of the bracket, adjust as needed, and get these lined up. At this point, you can snug up your upper mounting hardware, and then we can move on to marking the lower mounts. Now for these, you are kind of just placing them freely out in open space to some extent. essentially what you're looking for is just making sure the panel runs nice and parallel vertically to the bedside in here. That's how you're going to kind of place this. And then you'll need something to mark on your bedside. So depending on the color of your bed, you may have to get a colored marker for this. But once we're happy with that bracket location, we'll mark each of the lower mounting holes in here. And then come up and do the same thing on this front bracket. From here, you will want to remove the top 3 bolts once again and just get this out of the way during our drilling process. You could potentially remove the brackets down here and get away with it, but it's just easier to get the whole panel out of the way. Now at each of those marked locations, we're going to need to drill and install M6 riv nuts that we provide. For those, you're going to need a 25/64 hole. However, you want to start small and kind of step your way up to that. So we'll first center punch each location. And then starting out with an 1/8 inch drill bit to get a pilot hole here, we'll kind of work our way up to that 25/64 size at each location. Now, it's always a good idea, even before you drill your first hole, to get underneath the truck and make sure that you don't think you're going to drill into anything under here. Likely that's more critical over on the driver's side as the gas tank's over there, but it's always a good idea to use caution when drilling in any hole location. Once you have your holes drilled out, just take one of your riv nuts and make sure that they fit down inside of those holes. It's okay if you have to press on them just a little bit, but you don't want to, for example, have to hammer them in, but a little bit tight is okay. So when you go to install your riv nuts, maybe you've used these before, maybe you haven't. If you have and you have a different tool set up to get them installed, great, go ahead and use that. For those of you that don't, we provide you a tool that will get the job done. So essentially you're going to need to assemble what I have here, which is a M6 bolt, a flat washer, this kind of oversized tall nut, as well as a star washer, and then you'll be threading on the nut insert each time you're getting one of these installed. You'll take that whole assembly and slide it down into one of your holes, and then you'll need a 1/2 inch wrench and a 10mm socket. The wrench will hold the tall nut, and then kind of pressing down, you can take your socket and ratchet and start to compress that riv nut and tighten it into place. Now it's going to take just a moment to get that compressed, but as you kind of finish things up, you'll feel it tighten up just as if you were tightening a bolt. You want to make sure that's nice and tight, and then go ahead and back your ratchet off. You can then remove the tool from the nut insert and then just take a look at it and check to make sure that it looks nice and tight all the way around and that it's fully seated in that new mounting location. Once you're happy with that, you can reassemble your tool with a new riv nut and repeat that process on your remaining 3 holes. With all 4 of your riv nuts in place along the bottom, you can then come back and hang your panel back on your top mounting brackets. While that's still hanging loose on the top hardware, you'll then grab the remaining black hardware, which will be your M6 button heads for all 4 bottom holes, and get those started. Once you have all of that hardware loosely installed, you can come back through and tighten everything up. So it'll be, again, your 5/32 hex for all your 1/4 inch hardware and a 4mm hex for those new lower M6 button heads. Now your last remaining items should be your logo filler plates as well as 1024 stainless button head bolts. So these, at least on this back one, are really easy to just slide in behind here and get your 1024 started by hand. And then holding that nice and centered in the opening, take an 1/8 inch hex and tighten those up. Now things do get a little tighter up here on the front, but you should relatively easily be able to slip this through that rectangle cutout, and then reaching through the MOLLE holes, you can both get that lined up and kind of hold it in place while you start your hardware. Now just like on the back logo, you'll need your 1/8 inch hex. You can then tighten this up, again making sure it's centered in the opening. And at that point, your installation is pretty much complete. So as always, if you guys have any questions at all about this product install or anything else we offer here at Victory 4x4, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can always send us an email at info@victory4x4.com or call us at 269-459-8447.